In 150 AD, a Roman magistrate named Pliny wrote a panicked letter to the emperor. He'd been interrogating Christians, trying to understand why they were turning the empire upside down. And in his report, he described what terrified Rome. They gather in what they call ecclesia, and they speak and act as if Caesar has no authority over them. Rome didn't fear Christians because they sang songs. They feared them because they understood something about their identity that modern believers have completely forgotten. If you've ever felt like church is something you attend instead of something you are, if you've ever wondered why the early church turned the world upside down while modern Christianity barely makes a dent, this message is for you. The word is ecclesia. It's the Greek word translated church in your Bible. But when you hear church, you think of a building, a service, a place you go on Sunday. That's not what ecclesia meant to the people who first heard it. Ecclesia was a political term, not a religious one. It referred to the governing assembly of free citizens called out to make legislative decisions for a city. These weren't passive attendees. They were authorized representatives with legal power to establish laws and enforce order. When Jesus said in Matthew 16:18, "I will build my ecclesia," the disciples didn't hear, "I'm starting a religious club where you sing and listen to sermons." They heard, "I'm establishing a governing body with authority to legislate heaven's rule on earth." That's why Rome was terrified. Matthew 18:18-20. "Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." The phrases bind and loose were legal terms in 1st century Judaism. Rabbis used them to mean to forbid and to permit. Jesus is giving his ecclesia legislative authority. You don't just pray about what's happening on earth. You have authority to establish what heaven has already decreed. The early church didn't ask God to move. They declared what he'd already authorized. They didn't beg for permission. They enforced his kingdom. Ephesians 3:10. Through the ecclesia, the manifold wisdom of God should be made known to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly realms. Through you, the wisdom of God is made known to demonic powers. You're not a spectator in a cosmic battle. You are the means by which heaven's authority is demonstrated to hell. When the ecclesia gathers, the enemy doesn't see a nice service. He sees a legislative assembly enforcing the verdict of Calvary. The early church father Tertullian wrote in 200 AD, "We meet together as an assembly to storm heaven with our prayers like a united force." Storm heaven like a united force. They didn't see themselves as consumers at a religious experience. They saw themselves as a governing body with delegated authority. And that's why they turned the world upside down. Here's what happened. Somewhere between then and now, ecclesia stopped being a governmental assembly and became a building, a place you go, a service you attend, and believers stopped operating in authority and started living like spiritual civilians. But you're not a civilian. You're part of the ecclesia.